but in the region. And we've been able to focus on affordable housing in particular, from the CASA Compact some years ago, which has been part of shaping the housing bond that you all may have heard of, the Bay Area Housing and Finance Authority. We have also been working to update our RHNA. Those are our Regional Housing Needs Assessment goals. So I'd like to have the opportunity, as we put this bond measure on the ballot, to be able to implement it at the county. In addition to meeting our housing goals, it's really important to meet our equity goals. And BAFA, the bond, has an equity framework. The City of Oakland has an equity framework. I'd be interested in building out an equity framework for the county. And more importantly, working with each of our cities and unincorporated areas as we build housing, to ensure that city services, operation supports, especially for homeless residents, is matched with those construction dollars. There's also an opportunity to focus on additional protection measures as well.
Thank you. Next is John Bowders.
Thank you for the question. There are 7 committees at the Alameda County Board of Supervisors, and I would pick 2 that I would be most interested in. The first is the Budget Committee. So I've served as the chair of the City of Emeryville's Budget Committee for the last 8 years, and the County of Alameda has over $4 billion in annual funding that it appropriates to largely go to the social safety net of the county. And in my experience, the budget is the document that speaks to the values of the county, and I really want to ensure that we spend the money in a way that's going to be consistent with what the taxpayers are expecting us to do, but also is going to deliver social and health outcomes for the people we serve. There's a lot of really good things in the budget, but I see opportunities to optimize the budget without increasing taxes in ways that would actually afford us the opportunity to provide better and more holistic care that deliver better social and health outcomes for people. So that'd be my first priority if I was on the Board of Supervisors, was to get on the Budget Committee. My second priority would be to serve on the Social Services Committee. So separate from the Health Committee, which is also an important committee that I would be interested in, the Social Services Committee basically liaisons with and supports the 260 community-based organizations that provide contract-based social services to people in Alameda County. And when we look at the social safety net and how we're providing services right now, when you think about the fact that we have 260 social service contract supporters, we need to better integrate the services that we have with the community's already existing infrastructure. So I'd be looking for ways to optimize them as well in terms of helping deliver more comprehensive and co-located services, so that the people we're assisting, we're getting them off of tax-based assistance sooner and into self-sufficiency models that support them long-term.
Thank you. And the next question, the final question, goes to Ken Barrick.
Yeah, I hate going after John because my answer is so similar to his. The Social Services Committee and the Health Committee are so linked, and they need to be integrated better. So I really want to serve both across social services and mental health, because we can use mental health funding in combination with social services to deal with so many problems, and we can bridge over to juvenile justice. So working with the Juvenile Justice Commission and being integrated on the health services side, so that we can bring mental health services into those areas. That $700 million in health and public health, most of which is mental health. That takes you inevitably, though, to look at the jail and the mental health budget in the jail, which started out as $40 million, but I understand it is significantly more than that, much of which should be shifted to community-based programs and not be in the jail. We have so many people in that jail right now that are not a threat to the public, and that could be served in a series of tiered community-based programs, some secure perimeter, and some not secure, and they would be better served, and that money would be leveraged with federal money, because we're locked out right now. I'd also like to be, eventually there's a seat on the Alameda Alliance, and the Alliance, as you know, is the entity, the board has a seat, that is the entity that controls what we do with Medi-Cal and Medicaid in Alameda County, and we can integrate that better, that insurance company effectively, so that we deliver better services.
Thank you. Okay, second question. What are your priorities to address the homeless crisis in Alameda County? How will you work with the cities in the county? This first person goes to Nikki Fortunata Paz.
Thank you. I've already touched on this a bit in my prior answers. And, I think what I'll say is, in addition to creating the permanent supportive housing that we have an opportunity to create through this potential bond measure, I really want to make sure that we're partnering more deeply with our cities. As an Oakland Council member, I see that we could do a lot better in terms of service integration, in terms of coordination, in terms of actually choosing projects that we invest in together. I think there's also an opportunity to address homelessness in terms of really directly addressing mental health care. There is this intersection between homelessness, violence, as well as mental health. And we have to make sure that we are addressing exactly the issues that people have. So as we um, continue to build out our crisis response programs in our cities as well as in the county. At the City of Oakland, I was able to help create the crisis response program that we have in our fire department. And that's really a first line that is answering nonviolent, non-criminal calls for service. That includes mental health issues, people who are homeless, people who might be causing disturbances. And with those first line responders, we have to make sure that if the person is homeless or in need of mental health services, that there's actually a county response and a county program that we are able to refer people to for services.
Thank you. This question now goes to Gerald Pechenuk.
Yes. Start with FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Glass-Steagall, to stop the bleeding in the bank system. Right now, the ratio of debt to GDP is 124. We're not investing productively. You need to stop the bleeding, Glass-Steagall. Number two, you need a credit system. That's what FDR did. That's what Lincoln did with the greenbacks. That's what John F. Kennedy did with Treasury bills. You put them toward production. Number three, you need big projects like the Transcontinental Railroad, the Apollo program. You need hope and a mission for people. That's how you deal with this hopelessness. You do some great things for the nation. And number four, the imagination of the children. Nuclear fusion power is here. I've been campaigning for this for decades. We got Lawrence Livermore Labs. We can train people. We can get the unions with apprenticeships. We could create, I would estimate, 500,000 productive jobs in this area. So there wouldn't be victims. We wouldn't need people getting paid to help victims because we would get rid of victims. We don't need victims. We need productive people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is John Bowders.
Thank you. So my experience in this area is extended over 25 years, from my lived experience to my professional experience. And I think the biggest thing that I could recommend that the county needs to do are things that we should take lessons from in other jurisdictions like Salt Lake City and New Orleans. So we need to actually integrate county services into shelter care and bring people indoors. That's how we actually intervene properly in addiction and mental health needs. We bring people with a uniform intake into all the government services and support programs they can possibly receive. We have that in a location where they can get that benefit, those benefits quickly and readily. They can be provided shelter and get regular access to mental health care or addiction support. And then we actually focus our time and energy and resources on helping place them in permanent supportive housing structures that support them. So I think that that's something that the county has been slowly moving towards, is hubs where there are those types of services. But the reality is that the number of people who are unhoused, who are in need of these types of crisis intervention care, outnumbers the number of beds that we have available and the shelter space that we're currently providing. So the question was excellent because it asked about working with the cities. The cities are the purveyors and grantors of land use authority, and so we need to really partner closely with cities to strategically place shelters in places where people already are, that they can get services cohesively, and the county needs to co-locate those services on the ground inside those shelter services centers in ways that are reaching people, right? There's a lot of people who are resistant to shelter care because of the way shelters are designed and how and who they house. And so we need to make those more forward facing so that people actually access care. We can get people into self-sufficiency and support sooner.
Thank you. Next is Laurel Plamier.
Thank you. So there are three main causes of homelessness. The first is lack of affordable housing for people who have low income or extremely low incomes. The second is our growing wealth gap in our communities, which is caused by lack of jobs that pay a living wage for people who to actually live in the communities where they work. And the final is the systems and structures that we have that reinforce racism. And I believe in upstream solutions that will look at those causes of homelessness and actually provide a solution instead of putting band-aids on the problem. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't also provide services to people who are currently homeless. That's also an important piece of the puzzle. But if we don't do both things, if we don't take care of the people who are currently in need and stop the upstream problem so that we don't continue to have a growing number of homeless people, we're going to do the same things that we've been doing for decades, and we're going to have a continued growing homeless population.
Thank you. Chris Moore is up next.
Thank you for the question. As I said in the intro, homelessness in Alameda County and the city council members that you see here running for promotion is up 22%. Why is that? Why have they implemented failed policies consistently? So if we want to have failed policies, we'll continue to go with the current politicians that we have running. But what is the core problem? Number one is accountability. The county spends every dollar they spend, they have no idea where it goes. They don't have metrics to track where it goes. The housing that the politicians here are talking about and all the funds going to that, they spend 2, 3, 4 times what it costs to build a house, right? So a unit, the government predicts 800,000 to 900,000 a unit. I build housing. I understand this. Nobody on this panel, I would bet nobody here has actually physically built housing. We could do it for 200 a unit. We could do it for 100 a unit. We could do creative things like form a partners who are in East Oakland and West Oakland, and they're buying buildings that are just shut out. They're all boarded up. They'll buy a 500,000 or 5,000 square foot building, and they'll create 32 transitional units. But they have to then go and sell that to a not-for-profit who's buddies with the county to be able to use it. It makes no sense, and that's what needs to happen. Is we have to lower the cost of housing.
Thank you. Next is Gregory Hodge.
Yeah, it's a really important question. I think when we think about the unhoused and public safety, these are the two biggest issues that folks talk about as we're moving around. The one thing I think is true is that back in September, the County Board of Supervisors declared a state of emergency. And that state of emergency was around the issues of homelessness and housing. So the state of emergency exists. There's a plan that exists. The problem, in my opinion, is that the approach to the plan is where we always fall off. We got to take a look at the models out of Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas had a serious problem with the unhoused, and over a 6-year period, they brought the numbers down by 67%. And the reason that they were able to do that, in my opinion, was that it's because it's the city of Houston, it's Harris County, and it's more than 100 nonprofit organizations who do the safety net work associated with housing issues. So I think that we got to do a much better job of the collaborative approach. It can happen at the regional level to prioritize prevention by expanding the universal basic income. I agree with Nikki that we've got to rapidly expand shelter and temporary housing and permanent supporting housing. And Laurel, I agree with you. It's got to address the root causes of the problem. Racial inequities, the disparities that we've seen over the last 50 years in housing policy, that's what's got to change.
Great, thank you. Next is Ken Barrett.
Yeah, I want to start where Greg left off, which is that you do have to have that multi-tiered approach, and you have to have partnerships with the development community. I actually disagree with Chris. I've actually developed homes for thousands of foster youth and families across the state, building housing and supporting them in homes and bringing youth home. So we do know how to do that. If we're about to miss the most important opportunity in a generation, legislation if Prop 1 passes. And I know that there's mixed feelings about Prop 1, but the fact is, if it passes and we don't coordinate between cities and our health department and bring resources into it in an integrated approach across a full mix of housing, from scattered site to temporary to permanent supportive housing, we will have wasted one of the largest opportunities we have to make a dent in this problem. But if we don't recognize the inequities that created the problem, as Laurel pointed out, if we don't start to think about solutions, and if we don't work with the positive development community to develop affordable housing, we'll simply be pushing people from one place to another. So the partnership between the cities and counties has to be done, understanding that those funding sources are necessary. Insight Housing in Berkeley has a $32 million budget. If $15 million of that should be mental health and 1.5 is, they're getting 10% of the funding they should have. We can do so much better than this by taking a collaborative, integrated approach.
Thank you. And Ben Bartlett.
Thank you. And so, again, this is something that I focused on extensively these last seven and a half years. The first off, the new generation, the one beneath me, is the largest generation in human history, and they outnumber the baby boomers. So all these people are here, but the housing portfolio is not expanded. So there's incredible pressure on every single housing unit. And so if you can't make the cut, you get pushed out. If you're weaker or you're poorer, you get pushed out. And so we've approached this from a whole panoply of different ways. One, we built more. We unleashed 1,000 affordable units, and thousands more on the way. We just closed for another 1,200 apartments at Ashby Bart. Another 480 will be affordable. Senior housing, the first church housing, right of return policies, the affordable home ownership. And as a result, homelessness is down in Berkeley 5%. Well, it's up 22%, as Chris pointed out, in the county. Mental health, again, so much of this intersects with the deinstitutionalization that happened 50 years ago, where people were put out in the streets instead of being care. So again, my plan is to build 15,000 beds, get them up into care, off the streets into care, and follow the model we did with Step Up Housing, which is a public-private partnership where a developer uses new materials, new ways to build, to make a new building that's telemedically enabled with services in the first floor, and people can live in there and be in treatment. And it costs much less and gets built in 3 or 4 months. So taking these initiatives at scale at the county with combined elements of ownership opportunities is how you get at ending homelessness.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, our next question is, what do you attribute the current spike in crime in Berkeley and Oakland and other communities in the county, and how will you use your role as supervisor to address the increase in violent and property crimes? We start with Mr. Gerald Petrenuk.